there's a little button at the top of the screen, in our screen that is, that says that we are in fact live. And there's a little box to the right of our screen that shows us who is coming in.
Who's with us.
Who's with us. Let's view attendees.
Shall I shut the door?
You can shut the door. I'll do it. I'm closest.
Okay.
Yeah.
So welcome everyone to this lovely, miserable afternoon in England.
And I think our attitudes at the moment might mirror the weather. You know, pretty miserable for a Friday, aren't we?
But good to see you, mate.
Good, thanks, mate. Yeah. Nice. So we've got people creeping in out the woodwork. Sarah's come in. Natalie's come in. Amy, Kevin. There's a few undisclosed. A few people who are trying to keep their identities private.
Stealth.
So probably because they're due at a dinner with their wife, isn't they? Probably family meal. They've blown out for our webinar. You don't blame them though, do you?
No.
So even though we are waiting for a couple more people, we're just going to crack on and talk about vocal strains. So,
but we'll say just before we start, sorry, that this is obviously, there's so much more benefit from this if we get questions to answer.
Is it called Q&A?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
But you can, because the point is you can get most of what you're just about to say from the actual issue. Which issue is it?
I don't know.
Issue
6, I think.
Issue 6, I think. Read them all.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Thanks, mate. Yes, as Steve said, having read the article, you will have had a bunch of information that we spoke about vocal strain. What is it for a start? We can go through that a little bit today, as well as going into some of the preparation you can put into place daily to make sure your strain is managed or reduced or even eradicated, which is like never, and then some tension tools to see if you can get yourself into a better spot. And then beyond that, like we said, we really want to, Sarah says, hi guys. Hi, Sarah.
Oh, yeah.
We really want you to speak up in terms of questions about what you can do with vocal strain, even things you've experienced. So you can look at maybe your job as a singer and how you experience songs, how that feels. Does it feel like you're shoving air at it or just yelling? And maybe we can offer some advice. And the thing about vocal strain is, you know, as being singing teachers ourselves, you know, everybody's voice is completely unique, and the journey that everyone goes on is just never the same. However, common occurrences within that journey can be matched between singers. You know, quite often a low larynx helps 70% of people. Sometimes a higher larynx position helps 20% of people. So no matter what we talk about, there will be some sort of pollination out into the world where you'll hear a situation that's similar to yours. You'll try the resolution that we talk about, and maybe it actually works for you as well. So that's why it's important to get your questions out there, but also note down the answers. So talking about vocal strain, where do we start? I think in the article we mentioned that singing is a tension-based exercise anyway. So the vocal cords themselves, they need to have a degree of tension in them in order to create a pitch. And the more tension increases on the vocal cords, then the pitch raises. And the more tension decreases on the vocal cords, then the pitch lowers. Then we have the tensions that are required in order to place the tongue, the jaw, the head, the breathing apparatus, including all the abdominal muscles, the deeper abdominal muscles, intercostal muscles, the diaphragm, and everything around. We're all actually always balancing some kind of tension in order to make singing work. So it's quite easy to see why vocal tension would be extremely common in singing, and tension that's got out of control. And wherever that tension is getting out of control, is the one thing that we need to keep addressing. So that's how we can see why vocal strain. But what about some?
Well, you know what I think with all those different things you've got to balance as a singer, but add that to, I mean, think of it this way: what's the optimal situation for a geeky voice teacher / singer that really wants to maintain a healthy career? Is to create this situation where the vocal cords oscillate freely, self-oscillate, with no other extrinsic tension. You feel amazing after every song. The crowd roar after every song. But the point is, we've got styles that don't facilitate that even. You know, there's some styles out there that actually will require some other tension in some other parts. So
that's a really interesting point. I think it's worth expanding on.
Yeah.
Like, you know, for instance, some classical singers and opera singers are quite often the most relaxed when it comes to managing muscle tension because of the way that they train, and some of the principles that they use is all about perfection. But contemporary styles are about imperfection, aren't they?
Yeah, yeah.
And they're often actually led by tension in certain places, especially in the vocal cords or in the muscles that suspend the larynx and change its position. So yeah, as contemporary singers, it's like I don't think we can strive for zero tension in our singing. We just have to manage it, right?
But and I think, yeah, and what you just said there is also very, very important. I'm going to elaborate on that. Managing that tension, even admitting sounds like it.
let's get in a circle in a room and stand up and say,
come on,
I'm Chris and I have vocal tension.
When did it begin?
It was sad.
Yeah, it's been a journey, but managing that, you know, if you were going to accept that you are going to be, your style requires extra tension wherever it may come from, and then, you know, in the studio it might be fine, but then going out and doing it night after night, as we've witnessed over the past 2 years, probably more so than ever before, these artists that and they get, you know, they've almost got like this stigma, or like they almost get this kind of slagged off because their voice has died and they're not doing well and they've got to cancel tours, and obviously that isn't great. But if they're in a studio using this tension to create the sound, and then they've got to go and do it night after night, wow, I mean, good luck. But the point is, managing any tension of any kind, whether it's more than is required or not, is the thing here. This is why we just got to get really good at it as singers and teachers, helping singers manage that tension and / strain.
Absolutely. So if we want to put the vocal cords under less strain, we first have to look at what's outside the vocal cords. And you know, singing straight out of bed is like terrible for a couple of reasons. You know, the vocal cords themselves won't be warmed up. They won't have blood flow in them. They won't have experienced any vibration that day, which will help to sort of bring suppleness to the area, as well as hydration. And energy, as in you're starving when you wake up. So all of those things contribute to like not a brilliant situation in the voice to create a free-flowing stream of sound, right? But as well, the body will be stiff as a board. You know, the shoulders maybe, you know, quite often I wake up in this position and probably don't get out of that position until I've made my eggs and have to stretch it out, especially with age.
Well, I'll tell you what, this is the thing. So here's a revelation for you, viewers.
This better be good.
Well, I've just told you about it. All right. The sinusitis.
Oh, yes.
So I've thought potentially that I've had sinusitis for the past 3 months. But I went to a wizard of a sports therapist yesterday, and he stretched out this muscle here, and the sinusitis went. So I don't know about you, but I mean, bacterial infection from being removed from a stretch. Perhaps that's something more to do with the tension here. What I'm saying is, we only know we're living with what we live with, and we only know what we know.
Okay, I'm going to go with it.
Yeah,
just go with it, guys. Go on.
Because we've got every day, and we are as we are, and then we go and sing, and we just I'm fine today, but could you be better? Could you be more free? And by that, rewinding all the way back to giving ourselves the best chance to survive this jungle of strain and tension, starting with a routine that all body, mind and soul, creating relaxation within the body. Whether that requires you to do some meditation, whether that requires you to stretch daily, which apparently we're supposed to do anyway, and then it's more directly the muscles in and around the vocal apparatus. Something that just, if you do it, you know you're going to be better than you were if you didn't.
Yeah, yesterday, for instance.
So that's that. So it's prepping, giving yourself like the holistic, the best chance holistically before you step into the more technical,
the vocal, or actually the act itself, which is great. So, you know, when we talk about posture in the article as well, you know, even things like not locking out one's knees is an ability, or is a tool that you can use when you're trying to sing well or high notes or whatever, so that when you lock out your knees, that can bring about some compensation in the muscles that keep your posture. And again, that can refer straight to the voice box, which can be a problem. Even the linking nature of the breathing apparatus and the rib cage, like if someone holds quite a high rib cage position, that can like lift the trachea, and it can push the larynx up, which can crowd the throat, which can lift the hyoid bone, which can push the tongue forward, which can bring about a whole change in resonance, you know. And conversely, with a lower rib position, lower shoulders, that can pull the trachea down, uncrowd the throat, and then we have like another situation. So all of those things, it depends which point you start from. Maybe you start too slouched or too raised. It depends. We need to reach what's known as an equilibrium in the body, and that's why looking at posture and positioning of the body in general is going to help you to stand there and sing better. But then we get onto the vocal cords themselves. Like I said earlier, they need blood flow, hydration. They need to be treated well. And a full warm-up that starts easy and can be helped with exercises that occlude the vocal tract, the brrr, straw exercises, even humming, is a way of not getting too intense and supporting the vocal cords a bit more. And then we move on to actually the singing itself. The larynx positioning is often a go-to tool for what we want to do. And in many singers' cases, the low larynx position seems to be a little bit like, the larynx position anyway is like some kind of weird political movement between different singing factions, like, no, it must be high, and no, it must be low, and bloody blah. But we're all so different physiologically, and it does happen that tension can express itself by raising the larynx, and we can get that effect in our voice without wanting it, and sometimes it screws up the way that our voice works. So in many cases, like bringing the larynx low and using this kind of dopey tone can bring about a relaxing or a reduction in tension in the muscles that raise the larynx. And then we can start to experience some extended range, some improvement in the way that our voice interacts as we go through the bottom, through the middle, or the break into the top, and we can experience some smoothness in the motion. So looking at firstly a low larynx position and a more yawny tone to see if we can get some tension reduction there. But occasionally the high larynx position helps us to achieve a more balanced production as well, right?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I mean, like as you say, it is completely individual, and wherever you want to stick it. I mean, it's said, let's face it, it's said that you're probably going to have a good time if your larynx is stable. But as Chris said, if it worked for you to stick it low, then that's great. But obviously taking it slightly higher may give you a good result. I find a lot of the time only when, especially to begin with, if we take it high within the range, because there is that chance that we are going to be utilizing the wrong muscular setup on a high larynx as you go high to begin with, aka there's a difference between, a lot of you would have heard the sound nay being used. So if we were to take that high in a I don't want to use that word, in a inefficient muscular setup, you'd be like, nay, 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 nay.
Nice, lovely.
Yeah.
In a way.
But so what you'd want to do is, obviously you can hear that is horrific. So what we'd want to do is then we use it. I mean, people use the word head voice, lighter approach, whatever you want to do. But obviously a high larynx, whether it's or nay, 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 still a high larynx, but I've lost that muscular setup that creates that tension. So it's about jumping out of that TA engagement, the muscle that does all the work in the low notes, and really utilizing that CT activation at the top. I can't help with my voice.
But yeah, they're in other articles. But yeah. That does tie us in, doesn't it, to one of the other bits of advice. And we'll get into the Q&A in a second, because we've got a question there to talk about. But yeah, as Steve said, it's a reduction in effort, but it's a reduction in the approach in terms of volume as well. Something we recommend in the article is that if air pressure is high, if you take a big breath and you're going with quite a bit of volume in your approach to singing, then the vocal cords will, in a lot of cases, have no choice but to respond to such high air pressure. I mean, their job is to hold air back when we're singing, that is. And if the air pressure is too high, then the adduction or the closure needed on the vocal cords to actually withstand that air pressure so they don't blow open and crack, that will have to increase. So then we get into the realms of voices that are pressed, voices that squeeze together too much, and the volume of the vibrations on the vocal cords goes from being fairly normal to really, really hard. And that's when the damage to the surface of the vocal cords can become quite apparent. Lots of the muscles on the outside can help to compress or squeeze the larynx to create adduction to manage the airflow. So we're already recruiting more muscle than we need, which will easily result in strain and tiredness. And until you drop back that air pressure, you may never get to experience a reduction in tension, a drop away of the muscles that are trying to hold that air pressure back. And suddenly you'll be able to find a balance with a bit of time over the air pressure needed to actually even start singing that is a lot lower than is realized out there in the world. How you balance that pressure with what the vocal muscles are able to withstand on their own without the help of strain. I think a point we could open up there would be as well that if you do end up ragging your voice with volume, the vocal coverings, if you like, or your vocal cords can become in quite a state. And if the edges of the vocal cord become inflamed or tired, stiff, and overused, again, we'll experience actually a difference in voice and a reduction in energy in our sound. And again, you can say hello to strain for that, because strain in other muscles will come in to try and support the vocal cords action and get them to vibrate with as much amplitude as they were. And again, we can pick up strain for that.
So in terms of a summary, preventative measures, we're talking let's get in a good place physically beforehand. Give yourself the best chance. When it comes to vocally, again, we're looking at balancing the airflow. Am I blowing too much air? Does it feel like my neck is going to explode? In which case, then yeah, and especially if it's up high, then you're going to look at maybe using the larynx position to figure out how to attain those pitches in a slightly different way. Again, oh, am I blowing too much air when I go for that new sound? Okay, so awareness. Firstly, awareness of am I causing tension anyway, and then secondly, awareness when I'm using these new tools, whether it be the larynx position, whether it be the new sound, whether it be a change in volume, airflow. What are the changes? Is it helping? And playing around really.
Right.
So questions.
That's it. And we should mention as well, but we'll probably get into this in future, that one of the best ways to reduce vocal strain really is to have a good strategy for resonance, which is something that we literally love teaching, and that relates to vowels. So if you're not in control of your vowels, or you're not aware of how they influence your voice, then you might not be able to use them to your advantage. Good resonance, or a good boost in the sound wave when you use the right mouth, tongue and larynx position, will give such energy to the sound wave. It will just boost the amount of vibration in the air particles, which involves zero muscle. Okay, there's no muscle involved in that. The way that works in the vocal tract is it actually helps the vocal cords to wave with no effort, and then your muscular effort can drop away and away and away and away and away. And some really good opera singers actually take advantage of this principle constantly. So tuning in one's resonance, knowing about vowel shapes is the one way to get to perfection, or as perfection is impossible, as close to what you want as possible. So we have questions. Let's start with Amy. Hi guys, I'm a young singer, 13. Good job for getting started early. And only just starting out. As my voice is still developing, is it possible to overuse or strain the voice at my age, Steve?
I'm going to throw it out there and say that, I mean, there is no, I don't think you're in a worse state than anybody else, to be honest with you. I mean, there is a transition from a very young voice into the ages that you're at, and I guess it's difficult to know exactly where the development of your vocal cords are. And obviously, as we know, younger people can withstand a lot more from the vocal cord working together, because it's just the way they're built. They're a lot more supple. As we grow older, they get a bit stiffer, and that's when we can often run into problems. But I wouldn't say that you're at risk any more than anybody else. But as Chris said, now is a cracking time for you to start to lay down some good methods and techniques as you grow older, to actually prevent anything from happening. Do you agree? Yeah, absolutely. And it's,
especially through our younger years and into the later years as well, we do start to idolize singers, And I think with today's vocal stylings, especially when we look at the recorded versions of songs in the studio, we can start to emulate singers' tones that are just not sustainable as a live singer. Because a lot of these singers that are out there, like we explained earlier, are not doing it that way on stage. So at such an impressionable age, when you're working on your instrument, just be aware that don't bog yourself down with science, but you probably still need to work in some way to make sure that you're approaching your voice in a way that's not going to leave you all husky before you're the age of 20.
So now, and that's what one last thing I'd add on to say, what would it might just be an open question, but if there is a reason why you're asking that, Amy, that might be something to look at. If it really is just an open question of just wondering, but if there's something telling you that, okay, I feel like I'm overworking my voice right now, then yeah, you may want to look at that. And especially going forward, because as some of the slightly older singers watching this or anywhere across the world will know, you can do a lot more when you're younger, and so you're in a great position.
And recover.
Yeah, and recover. That's the point. Yeah. So you may be doing some of the things. I mean, I maybe not, and good luck to her. But I look at people like Ariana Grande right now, and she's doing some crazy stuff. But you do just, I don't know. I mean, not in a bad way. I don't want to slag her. I really don't want to slag her off, but I just want to say, I wonder if she's going to be able to do the things she's doing in the way she's doing them in 5 years' time.
Yeah,
right?
Well, but she's run into vocal trouble recently.
Oh, she really?
Yeah, so
right.
Ariana Grande has hit vocal trouble, but
right.
I mean, she sings well. I mean, if you see her live, and she sings a bit of Whitney with what's his face, the guy who wrote the song. She's amazing. Her technique is brilliant, but she's singing stratospheric notes all the time in the records. They're expected live, and it doesn't matter how good you are. I just don't think you're going to be able to smash that out every night and do interviews. So the more adventurous we get with singing, and the more we realize we can do, we just have to ask ourselves, you know, in a night after night arena, is that sustainable? And I think that's the case. We've often found that, you know, people who sing on the weekends, you know, we used to sing in a function band, or we still do, but we would sing just Fridays and Saturdays. That means you can bark yourself ragged until Sunday, and by the next Friday, your voice is fine. It doesn't really cave in, you know. It's when it goes beyond that, and then you become maybe professional, or you're singing every night, then you really start to see the importance of like where your voice is going.
And if you just wonder, yeah, you just said you just wondering there, which is great. I mean, conflicting advice. As far as I'm aware, there's no studies out there that say that anybody of a certain age has got a harder time than anybody else, right?
No. Just to be aware, you are a girl. That means you talk more than men.
Exactly. I was just about to go into that. I was just about to go into, like, you know, cheerleaders. You know, let's face it, there are, especially in America, you might be from America, cheerleaders. How many cheerleaders walk out with a pathology at the end of the, you know,
a lot
their time, right? Look at the way they're using it. It's not, I mean, not anything to do with their age. It's just the fact that they are yelling song after song, or match after match.
Yeah, or just letter after letter. They just shout letters.
Yeah.
A to the R, whatever. I don't know.
So keep doing what you're doing as long as it isn't hurting.
But get lessons, because you need to be trained.
Why do you start shouting?
Shout, yeah. Okay. Sorry about that. Claire, what are the best exercises to get someone out of the habit of straining? Should I just be working the head voice to build the CT muscles? And I think, to begin with, that is an amazing strategy.
Yeah, totally.
The TA muscle is like the muscle inside the vocal cord, and it's a hell of a lot more powerful than the CT muscle, which is a much smaller one on the outside. So that TA muscle can be responsible for a lot of strain, the inability to raise pitch, because tension in the TA can be so strong. The CT is trying to stretch the cord for a higher pitch, and it just ain't going anywhere. And that's when, in order to achieve a few more notes, we've got a few more strategies we can utilize, and that is apply tension on the outside to try and drag that cartilage forward. Use the jaw to come forward to try and pull another pitch out of that vocal cord. Same with the tongue, and also air pressure can be used to push pitch up by a semitone, or, you know, in extreme cases more than that. So I guess any strategies we can do or use to balance out tension in the TA would be amazing, and one of the first go-tos for that would be get into a CT dominant position, which is, you know, coming from the top down and getting high. And
the problem, and maybe the reason why, because it seems like you've probably done that already, Claire, and the problem is we've got to teach this issue, probably aware already, is that a lot of people don't like to do that.
What, scared of head voice?
Yeah, scared of head voice, and it's nothing like you want to be, especially in commercial music, it's nothing like you want to be using unless your name's Robin Thicke. So you know, it's in for the long haul. And in terms of lessons, you know, 95% will be doing a portion of that in every single lesson, because 95% of people are going to need it. So
it's true, actually. And, you know, you look at certain situations where the singer themselves is very contemporary or very intense, and when you're going up through the range, it might be like and there'll be a major flip. That is fine. It's like you have to kind of reassure yourself that we're going for a tension-less exercise. So to add chest voice or strong voice, if you add it back in and it's if it's straining, then the prerogative is just don't strain. If that means flip and crack, that is absolutely fine in the realms of that lesson plan. Because a lot of the times the singer just needs to experience going up, being stretched out, and not experiencing strain, and then saving the pressing in or the stronger sound for a little bit later in that lesson when you're sure that that singer can produce a lighter sound at a lower volume. If that's with a crack, then as a teacher you just have to manage the sound with the student. Say, I know it sounds like crap, but you just got to go with it. You know, it's the way we get rid of strain, and then we can work on building into that. So it's important to flip, really, in a lot of cases.
Cool.
So unless we have any more questions, we would just like to say thank you for joining us. We've probably got a few things we need to mention. iSing magazine, brilliant. Wonderful resource for singers, and we have an article in there every month, and the last one again was just packed with wicked stuff. So get yourself across to isingmag.com. We're the Naked Vocalist. I'm Chris. This is Steve. We have a website, thenakedvocalist.com. Obviously, we go via iSing for articles, but we also have a podcast. That's our main thing. So please go and find us at thenakedvocalist.com, where we have our information, our events, and also our podcast available to you. So go and check it out.
We've got an event in Southampton. Any guys in Southampton, come on down. 19th of September. We are. What are we doing on that day? We're doing Mastering Your High Notes, and we're using vocal science to drive it. But believe me, there's going to be a shed load. I nearly said another word there. Shed loads of laughs. Shed loads of laughs. But you don't want to pay for that. You want to pay for the technique. So we're going to show you how to smash out the high notes. All right. So Naked Vocalist, thenakedvocalist.com, and then also check out iSing again. So thank you guys. Thanks to iSing Mag for putting this on. And enjoy your weekend. Ciao for now.